everybody, what's happening? Keeping it real fishing here. I'd like to share with you my choice in action camera that I use when I'm doing my fishing videos. I don't post a ton of my fishing videos, but every single time I go on the water, I record from my first cast all the way to my last cast. And maybe just a personal obsession, but whenever that big fish comes, whenever that fish of a lifetime comes, I just have this thing with getting it on video. And you'll see, I have a couple videos where not only do I take a hat cam angle, but I have another camera facing me. That's just me. I really like recording everything when I'm out there, and I'm obsessive about capturing, that lifetime catch. So, but anyway, if you're in the market for an action camera, this is a really good choice. And I guess I'd just like to share with you some of the things that I really like about this. And no action camera is geared particularly towards fishing. I mean, an action camera is, just a regular camera, usually just built a little bit tougher so it can handle the fall, and sometimes they have waterproof options. But there's a few things about the Sony that I like. I think they lend itself pretty well to fishing, and I just like to share this with you. So moving ahead, I'll just give you a synopsis of what I'm going to talk about in this video. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about the value of the Sony and who its competitors are. Now this is all subject to change because, of course, 6 months from now or a year from now there'll be another unit and there'll be other competitors, but as of the making of this video, I'll compare it to what's out there. I'm also going to compare, I'm not going to go over every feature of the camera. It's not really going to be a total review of the camera as much as the key features that I feel are relevant towards fishing, and I'm going to roll in some video clips and try to demonstrate those things as I talk about them. So the next thing I'm going to talk about during the course of the video is the angle. The Sony shoots with one of two angles. There's a 120-degree angle and a 170-degree angle, which is a very wide angle, kind of like a GoPro. After that, Sony has some proprietary stuff which makes it really stand out, and they have a steady shot. I'll just kind of show you that here. They have the steady shot, which is their proprietary thing for steadying out and taking care of some of the jitter, and as well as the Exmor R, which has to do with low light. And I think the last thing I want to talk to you about is mic sensitivity, which is actually the biggest thing for me, interestingly enough. In my buying of a camera, the microphone was, to me, probably the most important part and the hardest to find a suitable microphone. One of the main reasons I went with the Sony, and I'll tell you more about why it's so good when we get to that part there. And something I'm just going to allude to right here, you're going to see this Sony. I have it on my I have it on a fishing cap here. It's a Cabela's cap with a cape. I have it on my little homemade stand here. And there's going to be a second part to this video, not so much on the Sony exactly, but I want to show you after this video mounting options. How to create a hat cam. It's really straightforward. You can Google or look around here on YouTube. It's not hard to make one of these at all, but I'll just show you how if you don't know how. This option here is particularly well suited to the Sony. It was almost like it was made for it. So if you decide to go with this, this is a really great mounting option. And in that next video, I'll tell you why this is a good option instead of the one that actually comes with it. And also some other things like how to film underwater. Some of the things you're going to need. You could just hold the camera in your hand, but it's not really efficient. So how to get the camera below water and put it at the angle that you want, and how to extend it away from you to capture the shots that you want. And then also, if you're interested, how to somewhat effectively film at night to be able to get a usable image in not at dusk but actually at night. So anyway, that's all going to be in a second video I'm going to make sometime after this, but right now let's get into the details of the Sony. Okay everybody, so let me just walk you around the camera real quick. The first thing to note is how small it is. The Sony is a very small camera. A lot of these action cameras have various form factors. I don't have any of the others here, but I'm sure you're probably familiar with the GoPro if you're looking at this video, which is very boxy. We have a Drift. There's a nice model out called the Drift HD Ghost, which is kind of streamlined like this. And there's also the contour Romes, which are kind of like almost like bullet, like cylindrical style. The Sony is kind of like a cylinder style. It's very, very lightweight. Let me get my scale. Okay, here we go. Scale's up and running. So with a battery installed, and the memory card is negligible because it's a micro SD card, the Sony comes in at, okay, that's grams, comes in at just a tick over 3 ounces, which is really nice because there's some that are heavier, particularly when you get into some of the cases, which Sony does have kind of the same deal here, and I'll just show you guys real quick. The Sony's 3 with the battery, and the case is also 3. So the case is the same weight as the Sony. And I don't want to dive into this too much because this is what I'm going to go into in my next video about mounting options. But as you just saw on my hat, I had that other mount which I kind of improvised, and the reason for that was to keep the whole assembly very lightweight on my hat. So that's why I don't go with this one. But all in all, the Sony by itself, just for the unit itself, is a pretty lightweight unit. I'd like to show you something pretty cool. If you have any other Sony products, you may find this of value. It uses a little battery tray, which is kind of funky. But what they provide for you with the unit are 2 trays. And you see that one has an X and one has a G. And the X pertains to these style of batteries. You'll see in the part number there's a X, a BX1. And then Sony has for some time been using this other type of battery. They use this in other, I know they use it in other cameras. That's what I have it in. I think they use it in some of their camcorders as well, video cameras. And it's called a G. You can see the G right there. And so that other tray they give you accommodates this battery. And then that whole assembly would slide right in. So that's a really rare feature, and something I liked about this unit, because I did have another Sony product, is backwards compatibility with batteries. I mean, that is really rare that any manufacturer goes out of their way to help you out in terms of batteries. Usually, or not usually, but oftentimes we see products and they have like their own proprietary battery just so they can make more by selling you, the battery that goes with just that unit. But in the case of the Sony, you can use these guys or these guys, and these were used in a lot of products and still are. And these are used in many things as well, not just in this unit. They're used in some of their newer cameras as well. So that's good news if you have other Sony products. And these are both, because they're used in so many things, they're pretty easy to find. Last thing I'll mention while we're talking about batteries is runtime. Even though this battery on my right is smaller, you can see it's a little bit of a thinner battery, and also not quite as tall, these have excellent runtime, and actually longer than the larger battery. I'm not sure exactly why. Out of this battery here, I can get just about 2.5 hours. It usually clocks in at about 2 hours and 20 minutes. On these batteries here, I haven't actually used them yet, but online I've read that you can get about an hour and a half, maybe a little more, maybe an hour and 40. But these batteries are excellent, 2.5 hours per battery. And so I had mentioned that I'm kind of anal about recording everything on the water. So I do have quite a collection of batteries. That'll get me through 17.5 hours of filming. Like I said, even in the longest days of summer, I can fish from my first cast to my last cast if I'm fishing the entire day. And actually, one more thing about the batteries. I keep thinking I'm all done. These guys right here, kind of like the bootleg ones or whatever. The Sony battery is not cheap. I think these are like $35 per battery, and it comes with one, right? So the system's going to come with one battery. But if you need others, it's kind of expensive to buy those. I'm always apprehensive on these no-name batteries, but I read a lot of good reviews on Amazon, and I could vouch for these now, guys. I've used this thing numerous times, and the charge, the duration of charge out of these is almost identical. It's like maybe give or take 5 minutes than the actual Sony battery. So it's just a clone of it, but they come in a lot cheaper. I think you can get like 3 of these batteries and a charger for like 20 bucks or something. It's You know, and I haven't heard really of any cases of them exploding or damaging anything. The reviews are overwhelmingly positive, so these are a good option. Okay, so the next thing we're going to touch upon is the price of the unit and what I see to be its value. There's a lot on the market to choose from, or I guess not a lot, but there's I think 4 big players. The GoPro being the main one, and we have different variations of the GoPro. HD Black, HD Silver, and I don't even know, honestly, I don't keep up with all of them. I just know the HD Black is kind of like their top tier one at this point. That comes in at $399. This is very much suited to, or I guess it's very, what I want to say, it's a competitor to the HD Black. What I really like about the Sony is that you can readily find it online for $199. It comes in at exactly half the price. And so when I saw that, you know, it looks like a deal, but then you have to question, well, how much performance am I giving up? Is the GoPro, being twice the price of the Sony, does it provide me twice the performance? And this is what I want to really convey to everybody, is that I believe, in my opinion, the Sony gives you about, and this again, I don't have the GoPro, but just from a lot of research and watching a ton of videos that people took with their own HD Hero 3 Blacks, and compares a lot of side-by-side videos as well, people who do have both this unit and the HD Hero 3 Black. My opinion is that the Sony is probably 90%, truly 90% the performance, if not better, maybe 95% the performance of the GoPro at half the cost. I'm sure some people will disagree or nitpick on some things, but for my dollars, if I can't see a readily appreciable difference, I'm not going to spend, you know, twice the money. There has to be really something there to justify a twofold increase in price. And the Sony just offers you just great performance. And in a couple areas where maybe it's not quite as good as the GoPro, I mean just a little bit less, it blows it away in, well, namely one others in terms of audio. The Sony is just, you know, heads and tails above everything else, but I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But in terms of value, guys, that's my thoughts on it as compared to the big dog on the market, the GoPro series of hat cams, or action cams rather. The drifts, don't have any direct experience with those. The contours, don't have any direct experience with those. And there's a lot of the lesser known, there's kind of like the cheap Chinese knockoffs you can find on eBay and such. Again, I haven't used them all, but just I spent a good number of weeks and many hours watching side-by-side videos of all these manufacturers, and the Sony struck me as by far the best performance overall for the dollar. And I particularly like that it's coming from Sony. It's a big manufacturer. They're not going to fall off the face of the earth. I would think that, you know, your ability to get parts for it, whether Sony parts or whatever, are going to be easier perhaps than some of the other lesser known brands. But you know, and anyway, that's just my thoughts on the value of it compared to what's out there. Next, let's talk about, let's actually get into the camera itself and its tech specs and what it can do. First thing I'd like to talk to you about is the angle of view. I'm going to lay it on its side here, just because it doesn't stand up straight, but pretend it's standing up straight on my hat. First thing I'm going to do is talk about angle, and if you're watching this, you're probably very familiar with the angle that we see on most action cams. It's a very wide angle. GoPro kind of made famous that fisheye wide angle, and that the GoPro uses, as well as the Sony, a wide angle of 170 degrees. So if you figure 180 degrees would be kind of like a straight line just out this way, this would be your field of view. You could kind of look out to either side and then see everything in here. This is just a little bit narrower. It would be 170, so maybe it's something like that. But we've all seen the videos and how the edges are kind of canted because of that fisheye lens effect. So the Sony has two options for field of view. One is a 170, which is going to be very wide. And the only thing, like I said, you have to deal there with is those rounded edges. And the other one, which is the one I prefer, is a 120 degree, which, and these are just estimations, everybody, but you know, maybe something like that. And it looks more traditional. It looks like you're just using a regular video camera. You don't have the rounded off edges. Perspective is more natural to just what your eyes would see, and that's the one that I prefer. So let me roll in some clips here and show you the differences between the two.
Whoa. What a save, what a save.
Fish on.
Easy with him, easy with him.
Nice fish. Nice fish. Oh, he's trying to drag.
See if he's got a trocar in his mouth.
Ah, yeah.
He's big.
Woo.
Just 3.5.
Okay, everybody, right here you're looking at 170 degrees. And so I'm not going to try to do anything out of the ordinary, but again, this 170 degrees does not employ steady shot. You can't turn it on if you're using 170, only in the 120 angle. So you just check this out for a little bit. And like I said, it might not look too much more shaky because I think when you're fishing, you're relatively still. Maybe if you get a strike or when you're you know, going down to land the fish, but you're going to notice that mostly in kind of action sports, whether you're riding a bike or, you know, maybe skiing or snowboarding. But here fishing, you know, we're pretty still a lot of the time. Next thing we're going to talk about is steady shot. And man, this is a really, really cool feature. There are advantages to going with a big dog, a big juggernaut of electronics like Sony. And one of those are proprietary technologies that Deep Pockets has gotten them and they've developed over the years. Steady shot is found on a lot of their other cameras and camcorders. And it's a really good feature because it works. It's not just a label on the side, it's immediately perceivable. When you turn on steady shot, it gets rid of so much jitter and so much shake, and it really levels it out. I love this feature a lot. Now in fishing, you know, it's hard to say. It's not like we're snowboarding or skating or doing some kind of action thing where the camera's, you know, constantly shaking and doing like this. That's really where steady shot shines, is when the camera's really violently going all over the place. Steady shot helps to level it out. When you're fishing, we're going to be looking around the next place to cast, or if we see fish jump, you know, looking down to get the fish, whatever. Of course, we're looking around. But our movements, I guess, are generally smoother. And so the steady shot still, you can see the difference. It'll still smooth out some of the abruptness there. I feel it's a more pleasing video to look at. But it's not quite the effect that you would see if you've used it on something that's, you know, more aggressive. So with the Sony, another one of its really cool features is this backlit sensor. They call it a backlit CMOS sensor. That's CMOS. And again, all these acronyms and everything that's being used in here are things that are used in full-size cameras and full-size camcorders. And they've just kind of scaled everything down and put it in here. The Exmor R helps to gather light more effectively in low light situations, and it does a pretty good job. And I'm going to harken back to the GoPro right now, because the GoPro, a lot of people feel, the HD Hero 3 Black, as of the making of this video, is the best action camera out there in terms of low light pickup to make a usable quality video when the sun starts to set or maybe early in the morning. And I think the Sony is probably 95% the performance of the GoPro, and this is what's allowing that to happen, is to have this backlit CMOS sensor. You know, Sony and all these manufacturers, you got to understand, guys, these are very, very little sensors in there that are receiving the light, very, very small. And while this piece of glass here may look pretty big, if you look closely, the actual lens, what you can see there in the middle, is almost like a pinhole. And that's true on most of these. They're very, very small. So they're doing their best to kind of cheat the laws of optics and to take in as much light as they can when they're inherently not very good at it. And so they have to use, you know, some of these sensors that kind of amplify what comes in. The downside whenever you're amplifying low light and you have a small sensor is that the picture will become a little bit grainy and you're going to lose that clarity. So those pristine 1080p videos are not going to look quite as clear, but what you will get is usable video. Whereas with other units, it's going to be black and you're just not going to be recording anymore. You will be, but you're not going to have an image. The Sony is going to allow you to go much, much deeper into dusk, and I guess allow you to start earlier in the morning at dawn. And this sensor here, also, I try to do some filming at night, like truly at night, and I use a very, very bright headlamp in conjunction with this, and I found that I can get somewhat of a usable image even in the dead of night with this sensor here. So I don't want to misconstrue it and make it sound like it's, you know, gonna turn night into day, but again, for an action camera, that's the big asterisk here, for an action camera, this thing is doing a pretty darn good job of low light pickup. And going back to the fishing perspective, I think that's very important because so many of us, we always think, you know, good bites in the morning, in the evening, right? It's kind of prime times to fish. And the morning and evening, if you're someone who's into videoing and into catching that strike on camera, those are going to be the times where you're not going to have a lot of light. So this is, I feel, is a very important feature, and you'll find it in the Sony. Okay, guys, so now it's about almost 7:30. Sun's been down for a little while now, and just want to give you a look at this amount of low light, and it should come up as still very, very usable. May appear a little grainy. That's just the way camcorders and cameras do. Bumping up the sensitivity, you're going to get a little bit more grain, but here we are, probably about 50, maybe 20 minutes before it's going to be nighttime, and you can see still very usable. Alright everybody, now here we go. It's I don't even know if you can see that. It's 7:45, and we're in the end of the first week of September here. I think today's September 7th. So as you can see right up there, our moon is up, our sun is down, and I'm sure you're not seeing things as good as I'm seeing them, but particularly when you look into where the main reflection is coming from, whatever light is left, this should be very usable. Last time I checked my low light videos, this should be usable footage. So just to give you another sense of low light capabilities. Okay everybody, last thing I'd like to share with you is the mic and the microphone sensitivity and the quality of the audio pickup. Interestingly, in my deciding of a camera for fishing, the most important feature was not the video, but for me was the microphone. And the reason I say that is because all the units on the market I feel have pretty good video pickup. Their color palette is a little bit different. If you see side-by-sides online, some are a little bit brighter, some are a little bit more natural, you know. But they all do 1080p, they all do 720p, and they all have their, you know, each has their own kind of features in terms of recording, but they all get that high quality video for you. What they don't all have is good audio pickup, and this is something that drives me absolutely bonkers. I can't stand, or I don't see the point actually, of taking tremendous video and having horrible audio pickup. I mean, the other units, it's like a joke. It really is frustrating to me. They put 99% of the budget in these things into the optics, and like the microphone is just, it's an afterthought, and that drives me nuts. Here's my reasoning. When I'm on the water, I want the whole experience. And particularly in nature, I guess this is true anywhere, but when I'm out there on the water or in the woods, I like picking up all those ambient sounds. I don't want to dismiss them. I don't want a directional microphone that's only going to pick up, you know, from one little area. I want to hear the birds. I want to hear the crickets. I want to hear the owl in the background. I want to be able to hear the strike of a fish on my lure 50, 60, 70 feet away. I want the auditory experience to match the visual experience. And Sony, in my opinion, is the only one who's even trying. This microphone here is far and away the best that I could find when I did all my reviews on action cameras. And so what I'd like to roll in here is some clips demonstrating the quality of this audio footage. Alright guys, so in this clip is going to be a prime example of the sensitivity of this microphone. Be on the lookout for the fish striking. It's going to be about 60 to 70 feet away, and hear the clarity of this this topwater surface. They're hungry, and you're providing the goods. Go. There we go. Okay everybody, so that last bit there with the audio, that's pretty much the last thing I want to show you on this unit. All in all, this is a fantastic unit for any use, but I really like it in terms of fishing for the aforementioned reasons. The audio, you're going to pick up a more complete experience when you're out on the water there. You're going to have that quality sound to match your quality video. It's really going to feel like you're there when it's the dead of winter and you're reviewing these things and you're wishing you were back out in the water, or you're reliving that trophy catch. You're going to want that audio experience to really make you feel like you're there and immerse you. In addition to the audio, you have that steady shot, which is going to help you out there when you're shaking your head all around, and that backlit sensor, early morning bites, late evening bites, and even at night. Let's see what else we got there. The angle, that 120-degree angle. I like that that's an option and not just a wide angle. And I guess lastly is the value. Look around. It's not really that hard. I think they're readily available for $199, and I think you have a winner. So like I said, I'm going to be putting up another video pretty soon, and I'm going to go into the mounting options. I'm going to talk to you more in depth about the waterproof case and what its applications are. Obviously filming underwater. I also use it sometimes on my hat in place of this one, and I'll let you know why I do that. How to film underwater. I have a cool thing I want to show you in terms of how to make a bracket on a ball joint so you can get all the angles you want if you want to film underwater. This guy here, where I got him from and why I'm using him. And I guess that's pretty much it, guys. I'm just going to go over the details of how to mount it, and so you can use some of these things if you think they're pretty good. Alright guys, so that's it. Any questions, please leave them in the comments. Thanks.